In a dark cell, an old man was kneeling, trembling. His hair had turned white, his back was bent, but in his eyes there was still that rebellious spark. This man had incurred the wrath of the Pope and the entire Christian world. His crime: questioning the universe God created, looking at the sky and telling humanity a terrifying truth. The earth moves. On that cold June day in 1633, 70-year-old Galileo Galilei was being forced to deny everything he had defended throughout his life. But the story does not end here, because this man had fought not only with the Inquisition, but with thousand-year-old dogmas, deep-rooted beliefs, and the entire world order. Today I will tell you the story of one of history's greatest rebels. Galileo Galilei was not just a scientist. He was a legendary warrior who changed humanity's destiny, solved the secrets of the universe, and paid the heaviest price of his life in return. This story is an epic full of courage, betrayal, love, and revenge. If you are curious about such impressive personalities of history and the dramatic events they experienced, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and turn on notifications. You can also write in the comments which historical figures you are curious about. Which character's story do you want to hear? Also, if you write where you are following from, I would be very happy. February 15th, 1564. Pisa. The day Galileo Galilei was born, no one could have predicted that this child would one day confront the Pope, turn upside down the workings of the universe. His father, Vincenzo Galilei, was not only a musician, but also a revolutionary. He was breaking traditional rules in music, discovering new harmonies. Perhaps Galileo's rebellious spirit came from his father. The family was poor. The only hope for Galileo's future was education. His father wanted to make him a doctor, because at that time medicine was both a prestigious and profitable profession. However, young Galileo, sent to the University of Pisa at 17 years old, shone not in medical classes, but in mathematics and philosophy classes. It was here that famous moment happened. While praying in Pisa Cathedral, he was watching the oscillation of the huge chandelier hanging from the ceiling. He measured time with his pulse and discovered something shocking. Whether the chandelier made small or large oscillations, the time to complete one oscillation was always the same. This simple observation would lay the foundation for pendulum laws and would create a worldwide revolution in the future. However, young Galileo's real problem was not money, but his fight with authority. Professors were repeating Aristotle's thousand-year-old theories like parrots. Galileo was asking questions, objecting, even correcting his teachers. This situation made him famous as both a genius and an aggressor. Due to financial difficulties, he had to leave university without getting a diploma. His family was disappointed, but Galileo did not care, because he had big plans in his head. He returned to Florence and started giving private mathematics lessons, but his real goal was to understand how the world worked. In 1586, when he was only 22 years old, he made his first invention, the hydrostatic balance. This device could measure the density of different metals and was based on Archimedes' principle. The invention was so successful that orders began to come from all over Italy. Galileo was now not only a teacher, but also an inventor and entrepreneur. But he achieved the real revolution when he began researching the laws of motion. According to Aristotle, heavy objects fell faster than light objects. This was an undisputed fact, accepted since the Roman Empire. Galileo looked at this claim with suspicion. According to legend, he dropped objects of different weights from the Tower of Pisa and observed the surprising result. They all hit the ground at the same time. Is this experiment real or legend? Controversial. But what is certain is that Galileo conducted countless experiments with inclined planes he set up in his home garden. He rolled balls of different weights, measured their speeds, and developed mathematical formulas. With these experiments, he discovered the laws of free fall, constant acceleration, and projectile motion. In 1592, he was appointed as mathematics professor at the University of Padua. This period is known as the Padua years, and was the happiest period of Galileo's life. Here, he taught not only mathematics, but also mechanics, astronomy, and military engineering. Among his students were scientists who would spread throughout Europe in the future. In Padua, he met a beautiful woman named Marina Gamba. Marina was not noble. She was a simple woman, but Galileo loved her deeply. They started living together and had 3 children, Virginia, Livia, and Vincenzo. Galileo never married Marina because their social positions were very different, but he loved her and the children with all his heart. During this happy period, he taught his students not only mathematics, but also life philosophy. "Do not blindly believe authority," he said. "See with your own eyes, think with your own mind, test with your own experiments." This approach was laying the foundations of the modern scientific method. In 1609 came news that would change his life forever. In Holland, a mysterious device had been invented that magnified distant objects. This vague news about the telescope ignited Galileo's curiosity. Without ever seeing one, just starting from what was described, he made his own telescope. And not only did he make it, he continuously improved it. The developments after he made his first telescope were breathtaking. Starting from 3 times magnification, he advanced to 20 times magnification. Venetian merchants could see incoming ships hours in advance with his telescope. Military commanders could scout enemy forces from afar. Galileo suddenly became Venice's most sought-after man. However, his real genius lay elsewhere. For the first time in history, a human looked at the sky with a telescope, and what he saw were discoveries that shook the entire world. On those cold nights of January 1610, when Galileo pointed his telescope at the sky, he could not believe his eyes. The surface of the moon was not smooth and perfect. It was full of craters, mountains, and valleys. This discovery shattered Aristotle's theory that celestial bodies are perfect. When he looked at the Milky Way, he experienced an even bigger shock. This blurry strip actually consisted of billions of stars. There were far more stars in the universe than appeared. Humanity's place in the cosmos had suddenly become tiny. When he observed Venus, he discovered phases. Just like the moon, Venus also appeared in crescent, half, and full moon shapes. This observation was definitive proof that Venus revolved around the sun. But his most shocking discovery was 4 satellites orbiting Jupiter. He named them Medicean stars, in honor of the Medici family, who were his patrons. This discovery undeniably shook the geocentric universe model from its foundation. If objects could orbit Jupiter, why should everything orbit Earth? When he published his book, Sidereus Nuncius, meaning starry messenger, it created a great sensation in Europe. The book aroused so much curiosity that the first edition sold out within days. From royal palaces to peasant cottages, Everyone was talking about these discoveries. Galileo became Europe's most famous person overnight. However, fame also brought danger. Because all the telescopic observations supported the heliocentric model proposed by Nicholas Copernicus in 1543. The sun-centered universe idea directly challenged the teachings the Catholic Church had defended for 1,000 years. The Church's position on this matter was clear. It was clearly written in the Holy Bible that Earth was stationary. Joshua had stopped the sun during battle, so the sun was moving. According to Galileo's claims, however, the sun was stationary, Earth was moving. This was rebellion against sacred texts. In 1615 came the first official warning. Cardinal Bellarmine informed Galileo that the heliocentric theory should only be presented as a mathematical hypothesis, not defended as truth. Galileo responded without heeding this warning. Mathematics is God's language in the universe. Learning this language is not a sin, it is a duty. It was at this exact point that the greatest tragedy in Galileo's life began. He himself was a devout Catholic. He did not want to fight with the Church. However, the truths he observed were so clear that denying them did not fit his conscience. The internal conflict he experienced in this dilemma deeply affected him. In 1623, Cardinal Maffeo Barberini was elected Pope as Pope Urban VIII. Galileo felt great joy because he had previously had scientific discussions with Barberini, thought he was an open-minded person. The Pope even addressed him as "my dear son Galileo." With this sense of confidence, in 1632, he published his masterpiece, Dialogo sopra I due massimi sistemi del mondo, meaning dialogue concerning the two chief world systems. The book was in the form of a dialogue between three characters: Salviati, who supported Copernicus, Sagredo, who was neutral, and Simplicio, who defended Aristotle. Theoretically, the book appeared neutral, dealing with both models. However, as the pages progressed, the superiority of the heliocentric model became clearly apparent. Even worse, the character Simplicio was portrayed as someone constantly defeated, simple-minded. Pope Urban VIII went mad with rage when he read the book, because he saw himself in the character Simplicio and thought Galileo had betrayed him. This personal offense prepared Galileo's end. The Inquisition immediately took action. In 1633, they summoned Galileo to Rome. The 70-year-old man, sick and exhausted, was forced to comply with this summons. Throughout the journey, he was sad about being away from Marina and the children, afraid he would never see them again. When he arrived in Rome, he was placed in the Inquisition's center, that terrible Villa Medici. Here, he was interrogated for months. In the first hearings, he defended himself. "I only showed the beauty of the universe God created. How can this be a sin?" However, the cardinal inquisitors were determined. They presented him with two options. Either he would repent by admitting the heliocentric theory was wrong, or he would be burned for heresy. Under threat of torture, Galileo's resistance was broken. On June 22, 1633, kneeling in the church of Santa Maria sopra Minerva, he was forced to read these words: "I, Galileo Galilei, swear on this holy Bible that I touch with my own hands, that I believe, respect, and accept everything the Holy Catholic and Apostolic Church teaches and preaches." Then came that famous moment. According to legend, after this denial, while standing up, he muttered, "Eppur si muove," meaning, "and yet it moves." Was this sentence really said? Historians agree that it was made up in the 18th century. However, this sentence perfectly reflects Galileo's spirit. He was sentenced to house arrest. He would spend the rest of his life in his villa in Arcetri, near his daughter Virginia, whose religious name was Sister Maria Celeste. Although this punishment seemed light, for Galileo it was worse than death, because he was deprived of his freedom, his friends, and scientific discussions. However, even this imprisonment did not stop his scientific work. He secretly wrote his last great work, Discorsi e dimostrazioni matematiche intorno a due nuove scienze, meaning discourses and mathematical demonstrations relating to two new sciences. This book was laying the foundations of modern physics and would inspire Newton's work. His correspondence with his daughter Virginia shows that Galileo was not only a scientist, but also a loving father. Virginia constantly wrote him letters, tried to give him morale, tried to relieve her father's mental distress. Virginia's death in 1634, at a young age, deeply shook Galileo. In old age he lost his sight. Ironically, this great man who had devoted his life to observing the sky spent his final years in darkness. However, his mind was still sharp, his scientific curiosity still alive. His students visited him, had discussions with him about the secrets of the universe. On January 8, 1642, he passed away at 77 years old. Ironically, Isaac Newton was born the same year. It was as if the universe had ensured that the end of one revolution coincided with the beginning of another. The Church did not allow a grand funeral for Galileo because he was still considered a heretic. However, even after his death, his works were secretly read. His ideas were spreading throughout Europe. Ironically, the Catholic Church that condemned Galileo officially pardoned him in 1992 by Pope John Paul II. This pardon, 359 years later, was an admission that the Church made a mistake. But was this not justice that came too late? Galileo's legacy is enormous. He is considered the father of the modern scientific method. His philosophy that the way to understand nature is to learn the language of mathematics forms the foundation of today's science. His observations with the telescope changed humanity's place in the universe forever. Today, his name is everywhere. The spacecraft sent to Jupiter, Europe's satellite navigation system, countless universities and institutes bear his name, because he became not just a scientist, but a symbol of human courage and the search for truth. So what do you think? Was Galileo's phrase, "Eppur si muove," real or a beautiful legend? And could we show the courage he showed today? Share your thoughts in the comments, and also write where you are watching from. If you liked the stories of such epic historical characters, don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. See you in the next video. Goodbye.